Hi there, this is the Common Magician, and this is the follow-up video to Guess the Method trick number 5. I made this tutorial here immediately after I recorded the initial presentation, so I actually don't know what your guesses are, and I don't know if anybody's got it, if you've completely figured this one out and it was easy for you, or if I busted you or not. I don't know. I kind of assumed when I made this that someone was going to figure it out, that there was enough information there to kind of sort out almost exactly what's going on. The one thing that might throw you off is that I did say that I'm confident that this is completely examinable, and I still stand by that. I'm going to show you how in a minute. I will admit there's a little bit of risk, though. So, very, very quickly, there is a secret ingredient in this, and that is in the form of double-sided tape. So you need to have a little bit of double-sided tape. There's a gaff in each one of these boxes in each deck, but they are gaffs that are created in such a way that probably are not interesting and would not be noticed to any kind of spectator that was looking at it. In fact, I'm confident enough that in the presentation that when you get to the end, no one would care to look at the cards because they can be handled at the onset of the effect, that both decks will be shuffled by everybody, so that at the end there's really not a great deal of interest in examining everything because they've been examined. So it ends pretty clean. The beginning is not quite as clean, but the end is pretty clean. Here is the setup on the black box. This is slightly more gaffed than the other one. I have a 4 of spades that has the tiniest little square of double stick tape right on the circle there in the middle of the pattern. And I took this and then I put the piece of tape on there. I pressed it on really well, and then I put it on like a terry cloth or cotton rag, and I took a lot of the stickiness out of there, got a little bit of lint on it so that it's just mildly sticky. And that's face to face on the rest of the deck. That sits inside the card box like this, so that the tape 4 of spades, the gaffed one, sits on the face of the card box, the bicycle logo face of it. So that's the setup over there. And once it's in there, I give a good press so that it sticks to the inside of the card box. The red box is set up as follows. It's a regular deck. It's actually a brand new deck, and that's probably a good way to do it so that it's reliable. But this is a brand new deck. I broke it in once, shuffled it a little bit, and I smoothed out the edges on a piece of cloth just to get rid of some of the burrs that are on there. But otherwise, it's a brand new deck. And in the middle, or in the deck, really doesn't have to be in the middle, I have a card that is a 4 of spades, and it is a breather. It has a pretty deep breather crimp. It is not the diamond pattern or the X pattern breather, but it is just kind of a divot breather. There's a way to do this with something that's rounded. You can press it in like a spoon or something like that. I do it just with my hands, with my thumbs. So I press in and I kind of stretch the plastic in the middle. So this is kind of a permanent breather. This is not one that is going to come out. It's going to stay in there. And I put it right in the center. And I believe that this kind of a breather, if someone were to look at that card, they probably wouldn't notice that there's anything wrong with it. Now, if you wanted to be a little bit more careful, you might do this with a face card so that there's a lot of busy ink going on in there. Or the other possibility is one that has one of the indications right in the center covering that little divot. So there's an intense breather crimp in there so that when I get it in the center or close to the center, I can pretty reliably dead cut to it to pull it out. So there is a force going on here. I'm forcing the 4 of spades over here and then reciprocating on this side. So that is the setup. In the presentation, you can kind of probably foresee how this goes, but it goes as follows. I give my pattern, my spiel about these two decks that go together. They have instructions. When I take this one out, I give it a quick squeeze in the center just to adhere that 4 of spades tape to the inside of the box, and then I dump it towards myself. So that all of the cards fall out except for my gaffed card. It sticks to the inside of the box. And then I lay this down with the opening facing me. At this point, the spectators really can examine the deck via shuffling. So they would be able to handle it. There'd be nothing amiss there. Then what I do is I turn my box over and I pick it up, and I set the cards back in there with the faces facing out. And the only trick here is that when I set it in, I make sure that I split the deck on my gaff card right behind the lid. And then I press it down, and it will pop that card off as it goes in. And now I have my gaff card in the center of the deck. And then I close it up, and I might give it a mild squeeze as I set it down here too, so that that gaff card adheres to the card next to it. So now the 4 of spades is upside down in the middle of the deck and stuck to the back of an indifferent card. On this box, it's the same kind of situation. I turn over the cards to be shuffled. Now, there's no reason why anybody would notice that there is a gaff breather crimp in there. Now, if I hold them sideways, it will want to open at the breather. And that's good for me because it will help me find it before I put the cards back in the box. And if I need to make some kind of a cut, I can get it a little bit more justified to center. But in general, the spectators can shuffle this deck and they can handle it in any way they want to. And they probably shouldn't notice that. These cards are then placed back into the box. I give my discussion about whatever happens to this one happens to that one. I open them up. And this just gives me a reason to put them back in, just to kind of give a cover for this idea that they're going to be matching. When I spread face up, my gaffed card is acting like a double face card, so that I'm only looking at a face and I won't see the back of it because it's sticking to the back of another card. So I can show it face up and there's nothing amiss there. I can do the same over here, of course, because there is no gaff card in here sticking. I talk about how it didn't really seem to work. I collect this deck over here, and I suggest to the audience that they concentrate on this one while we do a little bit of alteration over here. This is when I do my dead cut. I cut to my breather crimp, my 4 of spades. I don't show it just yet. I just pull it out, but it is right here. I show the back only, and then I turn this deck over, and the idea is I don't want them to think about a specific card. I just want them to think about this kind of in the generic sense. I spread these out, and I place it in with the back facing up to show that it's true, it's actually been done. I close up my spread, and then I place it facing up. And then I tell them to imagine doing the same thing over here. We go through all of that rigmarole, and then I do a spread on this side first, and there should be a surprise to see a face-up card in this deck, because we did not do any changes on that, and they handled the deck. The deck has not been handled other than one spread before this moment. And then we also spread this one over here to see that the card that we turned over was in fact the 4 of spades, and we have a 4 of spades. Now the handling at the very end here is a little bit tricky. The reason why I put that little piece of tape in the center on this card and nowhere else, just a little bit of a dab in there, is for 2 reasons. So that it could be handled reasonably without being noticed, and also so that it would be easy to separate. So I have enough adhesion for the cards to stay together just being spread. But the card could potentially be spun off of its companion and then set out there because there's only a pivot in the center. Otherwise, you could present it as I did, where I just riffled up in the back and then pull them apart and show the 2 cards face and back and set it down. Now, there's no reason why anybody would want to examine these at the end, but if they did, I think that they would just look at that. And probably a magician would look at that and feel right away that it's not a rough, smooth kind of situation. That I think that's pretty passable because the sticky section is so small. It's just in that very, very tiny center. I had to use scissors to cut that out very carefully. So I am comfortable that this would be examinable, but you would have to decide on your own risk. Now, again, other ways that this could be done, if you wanted to be a little bit more direct, you could use an unexaminable double face card and then just put a piece of tape so that it sticks on the inside of the box. And then it wouldn't be examinable at the end, but that would also accomplish the same thing. It would just be a double face gaff that you can use all the time. You could also use a rough, smooth deck where you have all of the backs being rough, and then you could have the one card adhere to the other one as well. So you could use potentially like a invisible deck and do a similar kind of effect with that, just with the one card being turned around on the inside, another way to do it, if you already have an invisible deck. So That wouldn't be terribly examinable, but you could do it that way. So that's what I did. I don't know what guesses you came up with. I don't know if you got me or not, but that was my idea. Just a little bit of double stick tape on one card and a gaff on the other side with a breather, and there you have a pretty interesting miracle, I think, going on there that can be handled by the audience, which is kind of special. So good luck with that, and I wish you happy magicking.